Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. I've got this Bally 6803 board out of an Escape from the Lost World. Uh, the board's pretty clean. It's had a couple of lamp SCRs swapped out over here. Other than that, it hasn't had anything done to it. Yeah, maybe a solenoid transistor. But it still had the original battery in here. Fortunately, it had not leaked at all. This thing was made in first week in 1988, but it's a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's good to get out of there, but it's impressive. It's lasted 35 years. Still holding a full charge. I mean, it's perfectly working, but like I say, it's a bomb, so it's trash. So I'm gonna replace that with a little coin cell holder. The thing with this and with a 2032 battery, the thing about these batteries is they're not rechargeable, whereas this one, every time you turn on the game, it recharges it. So what you got to do is you have to wire in a blocking diode. So I'm going to use a little diode here. And if you look real close, you see that banded side. This terminal here, you can see there's a plus on the top of this thing. Let me see if I can move this thing around. See that plus there on that top? So that goes to this terminal here. So that's a positive terminal there. Between that terminal and the positive on the board, we need to put this blocking diode. So these blocking diodes, basically, electrically, it's like a check valve. It allows the electricity to go towards the banded side, but it won't let the electricity go back the other way. So it allows the electricity to get away from the battery and keep all the memory intact when the game's turned off, but it doesn't allow the game to charge the battery when the game is turned on and the game's running on 5 volts, because this battery doesn't want to get charged by 5 volts. Not made for it. So you got to figure out a way to plug this thing in. So what I've kind of looked at it a little bit, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder this thing in there, and I'm going to just scratch it here a little bit, just so I can see where to drill a hole. So you can see where I scratched it there. I've got my multimeter set on continuity, so you can see that those are in continuity with one another. So I wanted to go between here and here, and that way when I solder through the other side, if I happen to get a little solder and it gets on, I electrically connect to this, all the better, because that will just ground this negative to this terminal over here. I'm going to end up putting a wire back here. The other thing is I've still got to get the that diode in from this side before it gets to the board. So I'm going to flip this thing over. This is that positive side where I'm going to place it. So what I'm going to do is on the positive side, I'm just going to get a screwdriver and I'm going to scratch. In fact, I'll do it right now. I'm just scratch this mask, and I'm gonna put you on pause here and do it. Scratch through there. I scratched not only through the mask, but I scratched all the way through the copper there. So I'm just gonna make sure that I got it. So from between here and here, I should have continuity, and I do. But if I move over to the other side, I do not. So there's no continuity across that gap that I cut through there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the positive side of that. Basically, it's going to be laid out like that, coming through there on the back side. So that positive terminal will come up there, and I'm going to lay that diode right across there, from there to that point right there. So I'll have the diode basically replacing that trace. But instead of a trace that goes two ways, it'll be essentially a trace that goes only one way. It allows the electricity to go from the battery, but not back to the battery. And so I'll show you what I get when I'm get it complete here. So here's what it looks like when it's done from the top of the board. Looks nice and clean. So I use that existing one for the positive terminal. So it basically secures this button battery to the board real well. And on the negative terminal, I actually drilled a tiny little hole through the board. Don't worry about drilling a hole through the board. There's lots of holes already, so just one more. And on the back of the board, that's where that hole I drilled. So I went ahead and connected that electrically to the ground on the board. there's the positive side, and put the diode on there with the band facing away from it so the electricity can go that way to the board. But the board can't recharge it, and you had to cut this other trace because otherwise it would go around it. So we bypassed that one and forced the electricity to go through this. So anyway, this should eliminate the risk of, not the risk, but this thing will sometime in the future. I don't know when, but at some point in the future it will leak, and it will kill the board. Done a lot of them in the past, but it's pretty impressive still, 35 years, so give them credit. Adios.